Guys, thank you so much for coming back, checking out Rancho Imperio Santos. So here's part 3 of my story. So it all starts the next morning. I'm super excited to go to the U.S. We're told that okay, we're gonna go tomorrow. And so I was super excited. And the thing that happens is I wake up like I typically do. My dad's nowhere to be found. I'm sure he's at work, but this whole time I thought my dad was taking off with us to the U.S. as well, and so was mom. So I woke up and I didn't really find anybody at home. I only saw my aunt and my uncles, but my other uncle that lived in Mexico at the time, and that's it. I didn't really think much of it. So I was kind of sad. I was really really sad because I thought my cousins and my uncle had left without me. I felt like maybe I was like, man, they just got me excited and I ended up having to stay again. And I got pretty sad, to be completely honest with you. But then, however, after me just kind of getting a little upset and getting a little sad, I was just kind of sitting there and I was like, man, why would I do that? They ended up coming back. They ended up coming back from the town, and I guess they went to go buy the airplane ticket. I mean, not the airplane ticket, the bus tickets, and make sure that all of our stuff was ready to go. And I was excited. I was really excited, and that's when the hardest part begins. I guess this kind of touches back on part 2 a little bit as well. But yeah, what happened was they decided to take off that same day, but later in the afternoon. I guess so. We had to leave as soon as they got back, and luckily my dad and my mom had just arrived too. They had my dad was obviously working, and I think he knew that I was leaving. I didn't know that I was leaving by myself, and so did my mom. So they kind of didn't want to be there, but at the same time, they kind of felt obligated to say goodbye. And so all I remember was I was kind of confused because, my mom came out with a briefcase, or not even a briefcase, a backpack. I remember that I had a little backpack with me, and I had a pair of clothing on, and that was it. And so my mom, she kind of started tearing up, and I was like, what's wrong, mom? And she didn't really want to talk, but she said, I love you so much, behave wherever you go and stay out of trouble, and that was it. And I was like, I was still confused because then at that point is when my father came and he hugged me, and my dad never really showed a lot of how do you call it, emotions, and I've never, to this day, I've never seen him cry, or show any, like, I guess, any feelings, I guess. I don't know, but maybe that's just the way he was raised up as well. But he just gave me a really, really strong hug, and he told me to behave and to make him proud, and that was it. My dad just went back inside, and then I was like, well, and then my uncle was like, well, we gotta go, guys, and I was like, okay, let's go, mom, let's go, dad. And that's when they broke the news that it was just me, that I was just the only one that's gonna go, and that they couldn't leave the land, and they couldn't leave the animals, and they couldn't leave. They didn't have a way to leave. And I was still a little kid, and I was like, well, you guys can come with me, you guys can use my ticket. I was only like, I think like 7 at the time, so I was trying to stay positive and just but they explained it to me afterwards, and it was really really hard because I didn't want to leave at all. I wanted to stay with my mom, my dad, and I was told no. That was the first time my mom and my dad ever told me no. And so it hurt really really bad. And so I remember my mom and my dad had to pick me up and put me in the car, and we ended up driving off, with the taxi. And I remember the exact location that it kind of always sticks with me when I remember when I first left Oaxaca. There's a turn on the way out of town, where you can still see our house, because our house is on the lower side of our town, and so you can see it from a far distance, and it's literally almost like the last house, before the road meets the pavement as well. And I I realized that it was happening. I was leaving, and at the same time I was excited, but at the same time I was sad because I didn't know if I was ever gonna see my parents again. Because again, I'm a kid. I don't know what's going on. So that's how I ended up having to leave to the States. Now, once fast forward a little bit, through all the sad parts and stuff like that, I remember there was a little bit of hope for me, thinking that I was still going to be able to see my parents eventually or something like that. 'Cause I was a kid. They just told me you're going to see your mom over there, and I was like, but my mom's here. That didn't really make sense to me, but I was kind of confused and I was just tired at the same time. So I didn't really pay much attention to it. I was just kind of crying my way through the whole trip. But once we got into the U.S. and I settled in, they took me to where they said, "Oh, this is gonna be your new home. Your mom is waiting for you." And so I had forgotten that. I guess I had forgotten that my parents didn't come with me. So I thought, oh, maybe they flew in or something happened. But that wasn't the case because if I had thought about it, they didn't come with me. So they couldn't come on the bus. I didn't expect them to come on the plane, but I was a kid then, and so then they took me to where my whole story begins as a how do you say, as a young child. That's where my whole story begins. And I grew up in the roughest part of town at the time. My biological mom lived in a trailer park, and so it was the whole city was different for me because I was just blown away. I'd never seen so many cars or so many people, for that matter, in one place. So it was kind of weird. But nonetheless, it was kind of exciting too, have a new adventure and stuff like that, and I was excited to meet my family, because they said I had more family up north, because, my uncles are here or whatnot, I guess they were just trying to convince me to stay happy, and so when they said, it's time to go to your mom's house, I was like, all right, cool, I was kind of excited, but I was excited because I thought I was going to see my mom and my dad again. But once I arrived there, I had the biggest surprise of my life, because my mom wasn't there, My mom, when I walked in the door, that wasn't my mom, And I was like, well, where's my dad at least, But no, none my dad nor my mom was there. And so I started tearing up, I started crying again. And I was just like, man, what the heck, I was kind of losing my mind at the same time because I was a kid, I was scared, and I ran out of that trailer that we lived in, and I ran as fast as I could towards the road, thinking that I was gonna somehow go back to my mom and my dad in Mexico, And I remember this because my cousin ran right after me. My cousin was a big kid. I mean, he looked like a big kid back then. He's still a pretty big guy. And he came running as fast as he could after me, and he eventually caught up to me and picked me up like a little kid. I mean, I was small, And so then he kind of just took me. You know how you see people picking up the kids and throwing a tantrum, That's how I looked, just going everywhere. And then they took me inside, and then once we were inside, my mom kind of sat me down for a serious talk, I guess, and explained to me why I ended up staying in Mexico and why I believe my grandparents were my parents, for so long, because I'd been in Mexico for a really long time, and so she understood what was going on, and she said, I understand if you don't want to talk to me or anything like that, but I'd much rather this story on why you stayed in Mexico rather than someone later try to brainwash you on something else, And so I had that those facts straight, and that's how me and my mom started on a new journey as a family as well, All right, guys, that's it for today. That's part 3. Part 4 and 5 will be dropping here soon. Thanks for your support. Drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you, guys.